Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I'm your host, founder of Voices for Voices, Dustin Allen Hayes. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for taking a minute, several minutes, a few seconds out of your day to tune in, to watch, to listen. We're so grateful to have you with us today. Over 260 episodes. We'll be definitely hitting 300 total episodes in our catalog uh, by the end of calendar year 2025. In fact, we probably will go over that amount given our trajectory now. Uh, but we can't do without you. Can't do without your support. If you can give us a thumbs up, if you can subscribe, like, share, all those things are free to do, and we would greatly appreciate that if you could help us out there. We are a 501(c)(3) charity, which may seem not likely given the amount of shows we have and the content and the topics and experiences, but we really are. We know that you know, we we know you value every single penny that you have. If you're able to donate, we would be so grateful for any amount. Just be just incredible to have that, and you can do that at voicesforvoices.org. You click on support the show, which is supporting the 501(c)(3) nonprofit charity that is Voices for Voices. Or you can go to Venmo if that's easier for you. Voices for Voices. You'll see the purple hands that you see in our logo, and that you'll know that you're in the right place. It's a beautiful day where I'm at today. There is blue skies, white puffy clouds. It is hot. It is humid, mm, but it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, as Fred Rogers would say. And I'm reminded on this day, as well as other days, but today it just hit me a little bit differently than usual, which is why I want to talk about it, because I think a lot of us have are gone through something very similar, and I didn't start to realize that until maybe a couple months ago to the full extent. And what is that, or what are those? So as we grow, as we go from children and to adolescents to young adults to adults, uh, we have certain traditions that we uh, that we like to do, or certain vacations, certain events, certain you fill in the blank, that over the course of the years that we do as family, as friends, as members of a company. One of those things could be volunteering time for an hour each year with a charity, which we would be grateful if you do that, if you would do that with us, Voices for Voices. And you can reach out to us directly to ask, how you're able to help, because we would be beyond the moon if you selected that, if your company selected us. And so growing up, those events, those time spent together, hobbies, shared interests, where we would do things together. And I'll, give my experience as far back as I can remember. So I'm in my 40s now, age-wise. As far back as I can remember, my my mom's mom and dad, so my grandma and grandpa on my mom's side, they lived in a greenhouse. And so we call them grandma and grandpa greenhouse. Keeps it easy for children. And to this day, that's that's that that's how I recognize them. They're in heaven now, but I still recognize them as grandma and grandpa greenhouse because they're still my grandma and grandpa. And on my dad's side, my dad's mom and dad, they lived in a White House. Not the White House, but a White House. And so we would refer to them as Grandma and Grandpa White House. Just keeps things easy for us growing up, and it's easy to associate with who we were meeting for dinner or lunch or for an event. And so my mom, her parents, Grandma and Grandpa Greenhouse, as far back as I can remember, and I don't know how many times a summer or how many times a year we would do it, but I remember my grandpa Greenhouse having a Buick, and we would have my grandma Greenhouse, my grandpa Greenhouse, my mom, my dad, my sister, and myself. So that's what, six people, and we would be riding in the same car. And so me being the youngest, kind of that center console in this particular car lifted up. So I was the smallest. So I would my grandpa greenhouse would be driving. So he'd be sitting to the left of me, and my dad would be sitting to the right of me, and I'd be in the middle, all up front. And then in the back, it'd be my grandma greenhouse, my sister, and my mom. And so the six of us, we would, again, I don't remember exactly like when it started, at what age I was, but I remember that one of the things that we would do is we would gather on a Saturday or a Sunday. We would pack the cooler full of sandwiches, ham, salami, water, maybe juice, maybe some watermelon. And so we would pack all that. We would drive the now from my grandma and grandpa's house. Maybe it was an hour, given the side roads and that. But regardless, so we would gather and we would drive up to where the baseball team, the Cleveland Indians, were playing at the old Municipal Stadium. And we would arrive early. I don't know exactly if it was an hour and a half, if it was an hour. I don't know that part doesn't matter. But we would drive up together. We would park and then we would eat lunch at the car. So pop the trunk, open up the core. When we would eat, we would get hydrated, and we would just be hanging out, getting ready to attend the ball game, baseball game. Once we were finished with lunch, we would walk, I believe it was across the street, after looking both ways, making sure that the coast was clear, and we would together as the six of us, we would cross the street and we would have our ticket. And back in the day, we had the paper tickets, and the attendant would, take part of it off to show that you were attending that particular game, so nobody could reuse the ticket. That's what that main idea is. And so we would go to the game, we would watch. The ball team wasn't, the Cleveland Indians, they weren't the best at those times. So a lot of games where we would attend and others that the team wasn't really that good. They weren't able to be as competitive as we would have wanted them to be. But it didn't matter because we were spending time together as a family. We were doing something that we all enjoyed, watching baseball. I was playing baseball. My sister was playing softball. And so playing ball was just something that really just ran in the family, something that we like to do. And when I look back now at those times, and again, I can't turn back the clock, but I miss those times. I miss my grandma and grandpa greenhouse. I also miss my grandma and grandpa White House. My dad passed last year. I greatly miss my dad. And so we would go to these ball games maybe once a year. I don't remember exactly how many we went to. I just remember sitting in the middle, and there was a little circular compass, and I would try to play with it, and my grandpa would say, hey, let that go. But again, I was a kid, and I thought it was like the coolest thing, and it showed us what direction we were going into. We didn't have phones, we didn't have GPS at those times. And so we had to just, kind of use our minds, our brains. If we've been somewhere before that we're able to recall. But I miss those. And while those days, those times happened 30, 35 years ago, I miss them. I miss, again, I miss the people. And we didn't have to always be talking, didn't always have to have a conversation. We just enjoyed being together and going to ball games. And after the ball games, we would stop on the way home at a restaurant that was known for their chicken, and we would eat dinner, and then we would drive home to my grandma and grandpa greenhouse, and then we would drive home to our house. And I miss those, and I'm sure you have similar stories, similar experiences, where we wish we could turn back the clock. And if you're enjoying those experiences now, just soak them in. I know we all have our phones, a great majority of us have our phones, and we're just addicted to them, the checking, social media, whatever. That part I'm grateful for when those experiences that I was recalling that we didn't have those. We were just human beings, just spending time with each other and doing something we like. And so my grandma and grandpa greenhouse, when they passed, um, we would kind of continue a little bit of that tradition, except uh, we we wouldn't we wouldn't usually uh, pack lunches because a lot of the ball games we go to would be in the evening, and so it'd be after my dad got off work, uh, and so there's this hot dog stand set up about a block away from the ballpark, and the same experiences that I was having and had with my grandma and grandpa greenhouse, my mom, my dad, my sister, me. I was having those with my dad. And so sometimes we would know, hey, we want to go see this particular team, or this particular pitcher is, going to be on the hill and pitch, and we want to watch. And so sometimes again we would have it planned where we would be going to a game. We would say, oh, next Wednesday, and then we would go. Other times we it would be a spur of the moment where dad would get home from work and he would say, hey, you want to go to the game? And again, it wasn't planned, but I wanted to, well, I didn't say it a lot. And I think we're all different. Didn't do a whole lot of verbalizing and talking with my dad. It was just more the comfort of being with him, being around him, knowing that he loves me, he cares for me. And and so we would go to games and he would do his thing. He would after we would most instances we would go to the same hot dog vendor. We would grab a couple hot dogs uh, because we're able to save a little bit more money than making purchases inside the stadium. And so this happened for years. So we would not only if my dad and I would go, but when my mom and my sister and the four of us would go, or a friend of mine, we would go. We would try to park in the same place. We would again grab a couple hot dogs or what have you, and then we would go into the stadium. And Dad loved watching the starting pitchers. warm up. So that was where he would spend kind of those first minutes in the stadium. And a lot of times I would go to where the TV set was, where they were doing the pregame, and I would try to, be on the back, be behind the announcers, and going through the pregame show, to try to get on TV. Sometimes I did. And then I would sometimes then meet up with my dad, and there was a certain spot where we would stand uh, near home plate, above the seats, and there would be a couple people that it wouldn't matter if we went to one game a year or we would go to 5 games or what. These are people that we we didn't know outside of going to the ball game. And we would literally and figuratively just we would stand there with these gentlemen and talk about the game and talk about the players and talk about, oh, the pitcher doesn't have it today, and their fastball is not registering, as fast as it had been, or I don't know why they didn't make this play or that play, and we were just talking, and it didn't matter what any of us did outside of the stadium at that time. It was just a group of people there watching the ball game and just having conversation. And this happened for years. There were some years where we may have attended one ball game and we would go to next year and the people would remember us. They would remember. And we would just pick up where we left off, talking about the ball game, talking about the team, talking about the chances in the playoffs and all all these just human communication, hanging out. We're all watching. We make a comment here or there, and we would do these for years and years and years. And to this day, I can't remember any of their names, but I remember exactly where we would go and stand. And there's been times over the last couple years when made it to some games where wouldn't stand there, but I'd walk by and there'd be a group of people, three or four, 3 or 4 people, and maybe one of them I would recognize, and so that was something that we weren't making money doing that. We weren't talking about money. Well, I mean, we might have talked about how much the players were making and how they weren't playing up to, what they were making, but it didn't matter what any of us did outside of the stadium. Didn't matter what job, what anything. We were just there hanging out. And so it was kind of like a family of sorts where, we would stand in a particular order and somebody would go get a hot dog or a drink. And so we would stand there and when they come back, we, give them their spot back. And if we were, if we made it earlier at a particular game, then the same thing would happen. It was just fun times. And I just look back and think of how small experiences like that look today, but how much it meant that when those happened and I was able to spend that time with my dad. And again, we didn't have to talk a whole lot. We were just watching the ball game, and we make a comment here or there, and we would nod and shake our heads and throw our hands up, and there's a home run, we would clap and give high fives, and you know we didn't we didn't know these people outside of that particular time, that particular game, or those games. So that was kind of a little bit of a ritual that when I would go to a game with my dad that we would do. Uh, and then the last couple of years that my dad and I, when we would go to games, we'd have that same pregame ritual where we'd go to the hot dog stand. Again, we didn't converse and know the hot dog vendor outside of the different games. And again, we could go to one game and show up, and then the following year we could go and they would remember us, and we would just have small talk, uh, and I think those are just so like so cool. So I miss those experiences. I miss going to the ball games with my dad. I miss going to the ball games with my family. I miss going to the hot dog stand that's a block away, who I believe is that his son has taken over. Again, I don't know his name. I, I think I remember a couple years ago when we went that the son had taken over the hot dog stand. Again, I don't know that it's the super lucrative occupation. It didn't matter, and it doesn't matter. It's about the experiences and the moments spent together with me and my family and loved ones. That's what meant, and it means a lot. In the last couple of years, before my dad passed, when him and I would go to a game, we would stop at the hot dog stand. We'd go into the game together. My dad would go to the normal spot where he'd watch pre-game, warm up, the pitchers practice before the game started. I would go to, where the TV set is and try to, wave and get on TV, and then text my mom, and who would a lot of times, we would watch the games on TV. And so she would say, "Hey, have you seen me? Take a picture of the TV." And then after that, I would go to, the home run porch, which was in left field. And the same thing, the same type of camaraderie, people I don't know, never met before. I may see them once a year at a game or twice or three times. And I would, instead of going to our seats, sometimes we would go to our seats. But me and my dad, we just like to stand, I think. And so when he was watching the pitchers warm up and I was on the home run porch in left field, they would, we would heckle the left fielder different times, and they would turn around and laugh, and sometimes they'd comment. Some home run balls would come over, and uh, but we would just be at the ball game and enjoying it, whether we're winning, whether we're losing. It was it's just something that we, as a family, that we, again, going all the way back to when, uh, over 30 years ago for me, when we were attending games with my grandma and grandpa greenhouse, and we would go up and we would sit together, and that. But as we grew up, and then that's when my grandma and grandpa passed, was growing up, and so we would kind of do our own routine. And so my dad knew, fast forward to, prior to my dad passing, he would know where he could find me on the home run porch. And so he could watch them warm up and he could, walk around to different areas to get a different view of the ball game. And then it might be the third or fourth inning. And then I would look back and I would see my dad there. And then we would just hang out. We'd watch the game, might walk around to get a couple different views to see how fast somebody's fastball is and the breaking ball, the curve balls and and other times we would go up to our seats. And so I miss that. Didn't and doesn't matter what like how good the team is. We just like to do that was one of the things we like to do. And so when my dad passed last year, he was sick for a little less than a year. So it had been at least a year plus since I had been to a ball game with my dad and that we had been to ball games. And so when he passed is why this is important to this particular episode is I haven't been to a ball game since then. So it's been maybe 2 years since I've been to a ball game. My mom probably the same. I think my sister, brother-in-law, nephews, I think they've gone to some games, but from my perspective, it brings up and it would bring up, those strong memories of so many years of going to ball games and just spending time together, even the rides to and from the game. Might be 40 minutes or so when we moved and that. And so I'm a little bit afraid of going to the game because my dad won't be with me. My dad won't be with me and my wife and my daughter, my sister and my brother-in-law, my nephews and my mom and so I miss those and I'm afraid. It's not that I physically can't go to a game, but because we have been to so many games together and where we spent so much free time going to ball games over the years, it make me miss my dad all the more. And I know he's in heaven, he's watching over, but it's something that's hard. It's hard to think about. And so I haven't been to a ball game in a couple of years. And it's okay. Same with my mom. My mom hasn't been to a ball game in a couple of years. And it's okay. So there's things that we're doing, things that we change over the years, and it's okay. It's okay to take your time. before moving on and not moving on, but before jumping back in to an event or things you would do with family? Take your time. So until next time, please be a voice for you or somebody in need. And thank you so much for joining us.